And today is another episode of a series that I started. It's the 4th episode and it's called Vulnerability Diaries, where each week my intention is to dive into a topic that feels vulnerable, to really just talk about them, to practice being more open, to practice expressing myself despite the uncomfortability, and to distill the lessons that I've learned from those experiences to help me reflect, and also hopefully to be supportive in some way for people watching this, for you to take something from the lessons that I've learned to help support you in your own life, or even to just inspire you to be more vulnerable. So this week is part 2 of sharing about my experience with alopecia areata. Last week I started to dive into it, sharing a bit of the timeline of things unfolding and talking a little bit about my perception on it. And this week I want to continue to dive into that timeline and also talk a bit more about the lessons that I learned from this whole experience. So for more context, I'd recommend you check out the last video. I'll link it down below. But just a little recap. So alopecia areata is an autoimmune condition where you lose hair in like patches. I've been experiencing it for about 6 or 7 years now. So let's just dive back into where I last left off. I was talking about how alopecia inspired me to really dive into so many different angles of my health, of really focusing on my nutrition, of really focusing on my mental health, on my emotional health, on all of it. So about 2 years into the whole alopecia areata journey, I started to see a nutritional therapist. I really just recognized how important gut health is, how important it is for me to really learn how to listen to what my body likes and what it doesn't like, and just to help clean my system out. So before I even started working with her, I was eating vegan at the time, and just something in me was telling me it was time for me to transition out of a vegan lifestyle. And I started eating meat again. I started cutting gluten out of my diet, and then I had already been dairy-free for about 3 years, but I maintained dairy-free. And when I worked with her, she did muscle testing. She'd like ask my body a question and then test it with my hands. It's like basically based on the pressure of your hands, your body communicates. So she'd kind of ask it these questions and work with it in that way, and along with working with different supplements, basically just reestablishing a solid foundation for my gut health. And I feel like the biggest thing is I reoriented my nutrition to just real foods. Like I just mostly ate and still today mostly eat foods that are minimally processed and from the earth. Fruits, vegetables, meat, grains, eggs. I keep it very simple, honestly. I really like simple meals. I like my meals to feel clean, to feel pure in the sense that there's not a bunch of additives, that it's not heavily processed. And I feel like implementing that really has made a huge difference. And today I still am pretty much gluten and dairy free. On occasion I will eat it, but it still just doesn't sit well with my system. My body doesn't like it. And I know that my body doesn't like it because through working with her and through working with myself, I have learned how to listen to my body. And that was her whole style of teaching. Wasn't to tell me how to eat, wasn't to tell me what to do. It was to teach me how to listen to what my body is telling me, what it wants, what it doesn't like. And I feel like that is important to do in every aspect of life. And the body does speak. I remember when I first started experiencing alopecia areata, I felt frustrated and I was like, I wish my body would just communicate to me. And then now over time where I am now, I really do recognize that my system does communicate. And it really is so important to tune in. It's such a process of little by little noticing. Like when you eat something, like just check in. How do I feel? And it's like if you eat something new, how does it feel? It's just constantly just being attuned and checking in. And it's just like attunement is so beautiful. Just like attuning to a child, like you're checking in, your system's just being aware, listening to the child. And it's like doing that with yourself internally, like emotionally, energetically, physically, with food, everything, like just checking in. So I really got in the habit of that. And over a process of listening and learning, I now have a good understanding of what my system likes and what it doesn't like. I used to experience IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which oftentimes is a precursor for a lot of autoimmune conditions. When your gut health is not solid, a lot of the times that does lead to irritable bowel syndrome. So through working with the nutritional therapist, I was able to clean and clear my system out, and then the bowel issue dissipated. And now more and more my hair is growing back. And at the same time frame, I also started to see a therapist, which was amazing for me to really just dive into my past, my present, all of it, just to dive into my life story, into patterns that I experienced, just to really get to know myself deeper. I have been going to therapy for about like 5 years now, and it has been a huge help in my life. Truly, I feel like I do know myself so much deeper. I really understand myself and how my system works. It made such a huge change because I feel like any physical dis-ease is a manifestation of something much deeper. I believe it's not just happening at random. I believe there are other things that trigger the experience. If you look at it, any physical element is sort of an alarm system alerting you to help encourage you to turn inward, to really look at what is going on. What is it telling me? But through therapy, I was able to unpack a lot from my childhood because honestly, I did experience a really challenging childhood. It was not easy by any means, and I went through a lot. And through that, there were a lot of wounds that I carried with me. And sometimes I hesitate when I even say wounds because there's something in me that doesn't necessarily love that phrasing, although I understand it and it can be helpful. What I really feel like it is just survival mechanisms, patterns, bundles of energy that I have maintained and carried with me throughout the years. Because at one point, they helped me. They helped me survive. They helped me cope. They help me get through all of those really challenging times. But then as I get older and I remove myself from those environments, I do not need to maintain those survival strategies because they are just wasting my energy. And within therapy, I was able to recognize how I was keeping these wounds open through behaviors that I was partaking in, through beliefs that I was moving through life with. In a way, I was perpetuating the wound by carrying these with me. So the camera probably moved a little bit because my camera died. Let's dive back in. So basically what I was saying is that through therapy, I was able to realize that I actually was carrying a lot of stress with me. I was in survival mode a lot, and I just wasn't fully aware of it because for one, I feel like I was so used to it. For two, I was denying it a lot. And for three, I was numbing out quite a bit with alcohol, weed, shopping, just so many different behaviors I would use to avoid all of the emotions that I was shoving under the surface. So through therapy, I was able to surface that and really work through a lot, really look at a lot, really learn from the emotions, because all of these emotions cannot get moved through, cannot get processed unless they're actually looked at, unless they're actually worked through, unless the lessons are actually distilled from them. And more so than distilling the lessons, they're implemented. Like change must actually take place. Like we must actually shift our behaviors, shift our beliefs to really make a lasting impact, which is pretty much integration. I really do believe a lot of the times we could be like, oh, there's a lesson in this, but if we don't actually integrate it by changing our behaviors, then you're not really allowing the lesson to stimulate change, lasting change. So where are we in the timeline? So I was about 23 at this time, diving into nutrition, therapy, and around about this time, I started to let my hair grow out. At this point, I had about 20% of my hair. It was just mostly big bald patches, and I just had little patches of hair. But around the age of 23 or so, I decided to start letting it grow out, despite it going through many very awkward phases where I just had very little bits of hair and it was like sprouting at weird angles and everything. I just let it keep growing and growing and growing and growing, and I honestly haven't cut it since. Well, actually, I did. Like 5 months ago, I went and got a trim, my first trim since my hair has all fallen out, because I wanted to get more of an even length, because since it was growing in at different rates, so I went and got it more of a uniform length. I feel like as time went on and really making improvements in my gut health, my emotional health, my mental health, all of it, I noticed myself starting to shift away from hyper fixating on the problem. I feel like a lot of the time I would get caught ruminating, in thought loops, just constantly thinking about the problem. A lot of insecure thoughts were just bouncing around my head. So healing is interesting. I really feel like it's not linear, where a lot of the time in the beginning, I feel like I was orienting towards my nutrition and towards my mental health in a way of trying to fix it so that I could get rid of the problem. An example, like to try to eat healthy just so I can get a result. How I perceive it is that it's showing up in a very conditional way. It's a conditional form of love. And I'm not sitting here and saying that chapter of my journey was bad, because it was a chapter. It was a part of me learning. And I feel like sometimes we do start off on our journey that way of like trying something in order to get a result. And then eventually throughout the process, we start to fall in love with the process itself. And I feel like that is what I experienced. I started to take care of myself, to show love for myself in all of these ways from a place that felt unconditional, that felt like I was just doing it because I love myself. I wanted to eat healthy because I love myself. I wanted to go to therapy and take care of myself because I love myself. The gears started to shift. I wasn't doing it to get something. And I feel like that was a really big lesson from this whole experience, and also was a really big thing that helped me shift out of the experience of alopecia areata, was learning how to love myself unconditionally. It's such a tricky thing of like learning how to draw something to you, like how to roll my hair back, but doing it from a space that is not attached, that is not doing it because I need this, like grasping onto it, but doing it because I believe it true in my heart, but I'm not forcing it. It's like coming from a space that's not controlling. Side note, I'll just be honest, it's so interesting talking in front of a camera and trying to explain these things. I'm still learning. There's so much I feel like I want to articulate a little bit better, but I'm learning how to do that with this bit of anxiety that I feel with having the camera on me. As I was saying, I noticed that I really wasn't ruminating on alopecia as much. I started to shift gears. I feel like I started to truly orient towards the solution as opposed to the problem. It's even more than that, because I feel like solution implies that there's a problem. But yeah, I feel like I just started to focus elsewhere. And the less pressure I put on thinking about alopecia all the time, the more space I gave it to breathe. And I do believe that was a part of the whole configuration of me experiencing alopecia, was that I was grasping so tightly onto it for so many subconscious reasons, but I was so fixated on it that I maintained it. And I'm not saying that I just ignored it and shoved it under the rug. No, I felt it. I started to allow myself to process the emotions, but I just didn't allow it to consume my mind from an insecure space. In the last video, I mentioned how I would a lot of the times minimize how I was feeling and really shame myself for feeling upset about this whole experience. I'd be like, it's just hair, like why are you upset? Like it's not that big of a deal. I really do see these as thoughts that are patterns that I had picked up in my childhood. So through alopecia, these thoughts that were learned and maintained throughout my system were surfaced throughout this experience, and I was able to really see them, to really question them and be like, why can't I feel? Like, why am I blocking myself from feeling? I understand there's a vanity element with losing your hair, but it's also okay to feel. It's okay to grieve. It's healthy. So I was able to kind of like reparent myself in a lot of ways, and to teach myself how to actually feel, how to actually process all of the intense feelings that came up that were triggered throughout the experience. So when I say I started to notice a shift where I stopped thinking about alopecia as much, I stopped also experiencing so many of these thoughts, or I stopped minimizing my experience. I stopped shaming myself for feeling. Also in the last video, I mentioned how it triggered this trapped feeling. That was like a reoccurring theme of just feeling trapped. Like I couldn't escape. Like I didn't want my hair to be falling out, but I just felt like my hands were tied. Like there was nothing I could do. And I believe that we subconsciously recreate circumstances in our lives that may seem different on the surface, yet they carry a similar signature and trigger similar feelings that we experience during more traumatic, more intense experiences that we have experienced in the past that we were not able to process at that time. That energy still remains stagnant within our system until we process it. So I truly believe our system is incredibly intelligent. So we subconsciously conjure up experiences to help us process that, to help us move through the energy that has been stuck in our system. So although this experience of alopecia areata was new for me, this feeling of feeling trapped was not. There were many experiences that I had in my childhood where I felt trapped. where I felt like there was no escape. And at the time when I was a child, there really was only so much I could do. I really believe I did the best that I could do. I didn't have the tools that I have now, and I wasn't in an environment that was supportive for me to work through that. So my system developed certain survival strategies and held that energy deep within until it was ready. It manifested into other experiences, one of them being alopecia areata, to help me move through that, to help surface that trapped feeling. And I was presented with the opportunity to rewrite the script. And I really, truly believe that I did. I have, and I continue to do that. And in my life right now, I really can say that I don't feel trapped. I truly feel free. And I really do accredit that to all that I learned through this experience of alopecia areata. It truly helped me understand how to move through life with that feeling of freedom. And another big lesson that I learned and still continue to learn is boundaries. I've recognized that throughout my life, I have had very poor boundaries. And through those poor boundaries, I have put myself in very unhealthy situations. And I really believe that the more I listen to what feels true for me, like what feels true deep down in my gut, to really tune in and listen to that and honor my truth and speak from that space and move from that space, then I allow well-being, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, I allow it to move through me freely. I allow it to move through me naturally because I believe that is our natural state. Like well-being is our natural state. It's just a matter of finding the ways where we dam ourselves, where we build a dam, where we block the flow of that well-being. I find that to be such an interesting metaphor. It's interesting when people say you're damned, and then you think about a dam, like a beaver builds a dam, it's blocking the flow of the water. So it's like where we dam ourselves, where we block ourselves, where we move from inauthentic spaces, we're just blocking that flow. And I really do move through the world in a way where I don't feel like life is out to get me. I feel like life is teaching me. And if I'm stepping off my path, certain circumstances unfold to help me see where I am misstepping, where I am disrespecting myself, so that I can reorient, come back to my center, to my heart, and move from that space, to speak from that space, to create from that space. Okay, the camera probably moved again because my camera's overheating, so it's time to wrap this up. I just wanted to end by fast forwarding to right now to just share where I'm at. So right now I have so much hair. And also, first of all, I want to add in some pictures of me back when I had hair loss. So I'll just like put those right here. But yeah, so I have so much hair. I will say I do not have 100% of my hair back. There are still a couple bald spots in the back. One of the bald spots back here is still growing in here. This guy's got fuzzies, he's growing in. And I have another one that is right here. But I have so much hair, so full, so thick, and it's growing in. And when I shower, I don't really notice a bunch of hair falling out. I don't think about it often. I just really truly trust that it's growing back, and it is. I see it and I feel it and I know it, and I move from that space of knowing that my hair is growing back. I feel very confident in its regrowth, and also I feel very confident in general. I will say there are still areas that I'm working on, like me sharing my voice, talking. I feel shy. I notice insecurities coming up. Singing, I feel very insecure about that. Another thing I will say is that back before my hair loss, my hair was very damaged and straight. It was like slightly wavy, but not much. I used to use heat on it all the time. I'd straighten it all the time. But when it grew back, I really set the intention. I was like, I want curly hair. And it grew back quite curly. It's usually a bit curlier. This is like day 3. I've been sleeping on it. I just found it to be really cool that it grew in curly. And I'm sure part of that is due to me not using any heat on it. I still have never used heat on my hair. I just wear it natural. And also part of it, I believe, is due to my intention. And alas, here we are. And then there's the question, what if it all falls out again? And how I feel about that is that I truly feel very confident that it's growing in. And I have a deep sense of trust for myself and trust in whatever unfolds. So if that were the case, if it were to fall out again, I know that I can face that, and I will know that I will learn from whatever that experience brings me. Anywho, next week I do want to unpack some theories I have about autoimmune conditions and what they're manifestations of. Yeah, I just have a lot of interesting theories that I've played around with over the years. But let's wrap this up. I really do appreciate you taking the time to direct your precious energy to witness me and what I share. I really hope there was something that you could take away from this video. My stomach just crumbled, so that is cue that I need to go make some food. So, all right, have a good day. Farewell. Goodbye.